Confidence is often misunderstood. We tend to picture it as someone standing tall, speaking boldly, or walking into a room with unshaken certainty. But that's only the surface. Real confidence isn't loud, and it doesn't demand attention. It begins quietly within. It's the deep-rooted belief that who you are and what you bring is genuine value. When you strip away the external performance, confidence is not about appearing strong. It's about knowing you have something meaningful to offer. At its core, confidence is an expression of purpose. When you understand why you're doing something, your actions carry weight beyond personal validation. People who know their why don't need to prove themselves, they just need to express themselves. This is the difference between performing and contributing. One is about getting approval, the other is about creating impact. Confidence, in its truest form, grows from contribution, not comparison. Think about the moments when you felt most alive. Not necessarily the times when you were praised, but when you were connected to something that mattered. Maybe it was helping a friend through a tough day, presenting an idea that could make someone's life easier, or standing up for something you believed in. In those moments, confidence didn't come from applause. It came from alignment, the alignment between your values and your actions. The problem is most of us chase confidence backward. We look for it in results, achievements, or recognition. But those things don't create confidence, they only confirm it. The real source comes before success. In the courage to start, the willingness to risk, and the belief that your effort holds meaning. The people who seem naturally confident have simply built a habit of acting on what matters, even when they don't feel ready. Confidence is not the absence of doubt, it's the decision to move despite it. When your focus shifts from, do I have what it takes, to does this matter enough to try, everything changes. Doubt loses its power when purpose steps in. You stop seeking certainty and start building clarity, and clarity is what steadies you when circumstances shake. We often assume confident people have it all figured out, but most of them are just clear on their why. They don't need to be perfect, because their confidence doesn't depend on control. It depends on contribution. When you believe that what you're doing has meaning, mistakes become lessons, not labels. You stop guarding your image and start guarding your impact. This understanding transforms how you show up in the world. When confidence is tied to purpose, you no longer enter a room wondering if you belong there. You walk in ready to serve. You speak not to impress, but to express. You act not from fear of judgment, but from a desire to make something better. That shift from self-focus to service is where unshakable confidence begins to take root. Because when your actions come from a place of meaning, you no longer need to look strong. You already are. As embrace the power of small wins, the confidence doesn't arrive in grand, cinematic moments of triumph. It grows quietly, one small promise kept at a time. The truth is, the human brain is built to trust consistency more than intensity. Big breakthroughs are inspiring, but they are built on the back of small, repeatable actions that no one applauds. When you keep a single commitment to yourself, waking up when you said you would, finishing the task you meant to start, speaking up once in a meeting, you train your mind to believe your word again. And that belief, repeated daily, becomes the foundation of unshakable confidence. Most people wait for motivation before they act. But the confident don't wait, they act their way into confidence. They understand that momentum, not motivation, creates progress. Every time you take a step, even a small one, your brain records it as evidence of capability. One small win leads to another, and soon the gap between who you are and who you want to be starts to close. Not through massive leaps, but through disciplined inches. The danger lies in underestimating those inches. We live in a culture that celebrates the finish line but ignores the footsteps that got there. Yet it's in those footsteps, the invisible, unglamorous, repetitive efforts, that confidence is forged. Every day you show up and do what you said you would, you cast a vote for the kind of person you believe yourself to be. Eventually, those votes form an identity, someone who follows through, someone who can be trusted by others and by yourself. Confidence isn't built in a moment of applause. It's built in moments of solitude when no one is watching. When you choose to show up for yourself in those quiet spaces, you create proof of reliability. And that proof matters more than any affirmation or external praise. Because when you trust your own consistency, you stop needing external validation to feel secure. You already know you can depend on you. Small wins also have a psychological power. They shorten the distance between effort and reward, creating a sense of progress that keeps you engaged. Each tiny success becomes fuel for the next. It's the difference between running toward a finish line you can't see and walking a path where every step feels meaningful. The reward of the habit is not just the result. It's the identity it shapes along the way. We tend to think confidence comes after success, but it's the other way around. Success comes after self-trust. And self-trust is built by proving over and over that you can rely on your own actions. Every small win says, I follow through. Every kept promise whispers, I am who I say I am. That repetition turns belief into certainty. The beauty of small wins is that they compound. A single act of discipline today doesn't just make you better today. It makes it easier to act tomorrow. The compounding effect of consistency transforms fragile confidence into something grounded, stable, and real. It's no longer dependent on luck or perfect circumstances, it's built into your identity. And one day, you'll look back and realize that what once felt impossible wasn't achieved through one massive leap of faith, but through thousands of small, quiet choices that stack together to build something unshakable. Reframe failure as proof of courage. Failure is one of the most misunderstood experiences in human growth. We're taught to see it as evidence of inadequacy, as a sign that we weren't smart enough, skilled enough, or lucky enough. But that's not what failure really is. Failure is proof that you tried something uncertain. It's the receipt of courage. The very fact that you have failed means you had the audacity to step outside your comfort zone. It means you were brave enough to risk being seen, to risk being wrong, to risk learning. Confidence begins to shift when you stop seeing failure as the opposite of success and start seeing it as the pathway to it. Every person who has achieved something extraordinary carries a long list of failures behind the scenes. The difference is not that they failed less. It's that they have interpreted failure differently. They used it as information, not identity. They understood that failure wasn't a verdict, it was feedback. Each misstep taught them how to move better, how to think sharper, how to adapt faster. The confident don't avoid mistakes. They absorb them, learn from them, and keep moving. The fear of failure, however, is often what keeps people stuck. We build walls around ourselves, disguising inaction as waiting for the right time. But there is no perfect moment. The only moment that builds confidence is the one when you act, even if it leads to falling short. Because every time you act in the face of fear, you teach yourself that you can handle the outcome. And once your brain learns that failure won't break you, it stops controlling you. Think about a child learning to walk. They stumble, fall, and bump their knees. Yet no one tells them to stop trying. Each fall builds balance. Each attempt strengthens their muscles. Somewhere along the way, as adults, we forget that falling is part of learning. We start labeling our stumbles as flaws instead of steps forward. But every failure you experience is like a repetition at the gym. It strengthens your resilience. It conditions you to get up faster, with more clarity and less fear each time. Confidence doesn't grow in the absence of failure. It grows in the aftermath of it. It's not the falling that shapes you, it's the rising. Each comeback is a story your mind remembers, a reminder that you've survived disappointment before and can do it again. Over time, you stop measuring your worth by your wins and start measuring it by your willingness to keep showing up. That's the quiet confidence that can't be shaken by one bad outcome. The most confident people aren't fearless. They just have a better relationship with fear. They've trained themselves to see fear as a sign of expansion, not danger. Fear means you're stretching into something new. And where there's stretch, there's growth. Failure is simply the evidence that you're in motion, that you're still learning, still evolving. It's not an end, it's a process. When you begin to reframe failure as proof of courage, you reclaim your power. You stop living defensively, trying to avoid mistakes, and start living intentionally, willing to risk them. You realize that the point of trying isn't to guarantee success. It's to grow strong enough to handle whatever happens next. Confidence, in this light, is not built by being perfect, but by being persistent. And the moment you understand that failure doesn't define you, it refines you. Every setback becomes a stepping stone, not a stopping point. As show up prepared, every timely confidence is not magic, it's earned. It's built through repetition, discipline, and the unseen work you put in long before the spotlight ever hits you. When you show up prepared, you're not hoping to feel confident. You've already earned the right to be. Preparation turns uncertainty into readiness. It transforms anxiety into focus. Because when you've done the work, you don't need to fake assurance. You can simply trust your process. We often mistake confidence for spontaneity, as if the most confident people just wing it. But the truth is, the people who make things look effortless are usually the ones who have prepared the most. Every great speaker rehearses. Every skilled leader plans. Every athlete trains for hours when no one is watching. Preparation builds familiarity, and familiarity breeds comfort. The more you've walked through a moment in your mind, the less power fear has when it arrives in reality. Preparation also communicates respect for yourself, for your craft, and for others. When you show up ready, you're not just saying, I'm capable. You're saying, this matters to me. That level of respect changes the energy you bring into any room. It tells people that they can trust you, not because you're perfect, but because you care enough to be ready. That's the kind of confidence that earns credibility, not just attention. The opposite of preparation is not freedom, it's anxiety. When we don't prepare, we leave space for self-doubt to creep in. Our minds fill the unknown with fear. What if I forget? What if I'm not good enough? Preparation silences those questions with evidence. It gives your brain something to stand on, the knowledge that you've done the work. And in moments of pressure, that preparation becomes your anchor. Confidence built on preparation is quiet and steady. It doesn't need to announce itself or seek validation. It shows up through competence, through the ability to adapt, respond, and perform because you've already done the mental and physical reps. That's why true professionals look calm under pressure. It's not that they feel no fear, it's that they've practiced enough to function through it. Preparation is also an act of self-respect. When you invest time in being ready, you're telling yourself that your goals are worth the effort. That mindset compounds. It builds identity-based confidence, the belief that you're the kind of person who follows through, who does the work even when no one's watching. And that belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more prepared you are, the more confident you feel. The more confident you feel, the better you perform. But preparation doesn't just mean planning for success. It also means preparing for obstacles. It's about anticipating the hard parts, rehearsing how you'll respond, and being ready to adjust without losing focus. That level of foresight builds resilience, the ability to stay steady when things don't go as planned. Because confidence isn't about control, it's about adaptability, and preparation is what makes adaptability possible. The real difference between those who crumble under pressure and those who thrive is not luck or talent, it's preparation. Every time you prepare, you're teaching yourself that you deserve to stand where you're standing. And when that belief becomes part of you, confidence stops being something you have to summon. It becomes something you naturally bring with you. Surround yourself with energy builders. Confidence doesn't exist in isolation. It grows or withers in the environments we choose. The people around you either remind you of your strength or make you doubt it. They either lift your energy or drain it. To build unshakable confidence, you must become intentional about who and what you allow to shape your atmosphere. Because confidence is contagious, but so is insecurity. The energy you absorb daily becomes the energy you project. Energy builders are people who don't just cheer you on, they challenge you to rise. They see your potential even when you can't. They don't flatter, they fuel. Their presence reminds you that growth is possible, that you can stretch without breaking. They ask better questions, give honest feedback, and celebrate progress over perfection. Being around them doesn't inflate your ego, it expands your vision. In contrast, energy drainers thrive on fear and doubt. They criticize under the guise of realism. They magnify problems and minimize effort. Their words sound logical, but their tone shrinks you. It's not that they're bad people, it's that they're operating from their own unhealed fears. Still, if you're not careful, their doubts can start to sound like your own voice. Protecting your confidence means protecting your environment. The truth is, we become like the people we spend the most time with. Their beliefs shape our standards. Their habits shape our behavior. Their energy shapes our outlook. If you constantly surround yourself with cynicism, you'll start to second-guess your optimism. If you surround yourself with people who take risks, learn, and grow, you'll begin to mirror that same courage. Confidence, like courage, is a social emotion. It strengthens in connection. Energy builders don't need to be loud or overly positive. Sometimes they're the quiet friends who remind you of your values when you drift. Sometimes they're the mentors who push you out of your comfort zone. What matters is that they bring out the best in you. Not by making you feel comfortable, but by helping you stay aligned with who you're becoming. True confidence doesn't come from constant comfort. It comes from consistent encouragement within challenge. Building an empowering environment also means becoming an energy builder yourself. Confidence isn't only received, it's shared. When you uplift others, you reinforce your own strength. When you celebrate someone else's courage, you remind yourself of your own. The most confident people are not those who stand tallest, but those who help others stand with them. Leadership and confidence always grow stronger when they're generous. Choosing your circle is not an act of arrogance, it's an act of awareness. You're not judging others, you're curating the energy that fuels your future. Every conversation either deposits belief or withdraws it. Every relationship either supports your growth or slows it down. Confidence thrives in spaces where truth is spoken with kindness and where growth is more important than gossip. Because at the end of the day, your environment is the soil of your self-belief. Even the strongest seed struggles to grow in toxic ground. When you surround yourself with energy builders, people, spaces, and habits that feed your purpose, confidence stops being something you chase. It becomes the natural result of living in alignment with people who remind you of your worth, your work, and your why. Speak to yourself like someone you respect. The most powerful voice you will ever hear is your own. It narrates your thoughts, shapes your emotions, and directs your behavior every single day. Yet for many people, that voice is not kind, it's critical. It focuses on flaws, magnifies mistakes, and questions worth. If you spoke to a friend the way you often speak to yourself, that friendship wouldn't last long. But confidence cannot coexist with self-contempt. To build unshakable confidence, you must learn to speak to yourself like someone you deeply respect. The words you tell yourself become the story you live. When your inner dialogue says, "I'm not ready," you hesitate. When it says, "I'm not enough," you hide. But when it says, "I can handle this," you step forward. The mind listens to its own voice. It takes internal language as truth. That's why self-talk isn't a feel-good exercise, it's mental conditioning. It's the practice of training your brain to support your growth instead of sabotaging it. Many people think confidence comes from external validation, applause, recognition, praise. but external affirmation fades quickly if your internal dialogue tears it down. You could receive 100 compliments and still feel unworthy if your inner critic dismisses them. Lasting confidence begins when you replace that critic with a coach. When your self-talk becomes constructive, compassionate, and accountable rather than cruel. Speaking to yourself with respect doesn't mean ignoring your flaws or pretending you're perfect. It means acknowledging your imperfections without weaponizing them against yourself. It's saying, I made a mistake, but I'm still capable. It's shifting from self-punishment to self-correction. Respectful self-talk is not about inflating your ego. It's about anchoring your self-worth in truth, not judgment. The tone you use with yourself matters as much as the words. Harshness breeds fear, kindness breeds courage. When you speak with empathy toward your own effort, you create a psychological safety net, a space where learning replaces shame. That safety gives you permission to try again, to take risks, to grow. Confidence is not the absence of mistakes, it's the freedom to make them without losing belief in yourself. You can rewire this habit through small, consistent shifts. Start noticing the moments you criticize yourself. Then pause and reframe the thought as if you were speaking to someone you care about. Instead of, I'm so stupid, try, I'm still learning. Instead of, I can't handle this, try, this is hard, but I can figure it out. Over time, your brain learns that it can trust your voice, that even in failure, it will be met with respect, not ridicule. When your internal language becomes supportive, your external world begins to change. You take more initiative because you trust your ability to recover. You communicate with more clarity because you're not trying to prove your worth. You already believe in it. You face challenges with calm instead of panic because your inner dialogue tells you, you've got this. Confidence grows from that steady conversation between belief and effort. And when you learn to speak to yourself like someone you respect, you stop depending on others to fill that role. Encouragement from outside becomes a bonus, not a necessity. Your confidence stops fluctuating with opinions or outcomes because its foundation lies within you, in the voice that reminds you every day that you are worthy, capable, and becoming stronger with every step. Serve a purpose bigger than yourself. A confidence reaches its highest form when it stops being about you. The strongest, calmest, most grounded kind of confidence comes from connection to something larger, a cause, a mission, a purpose. When your focus shifts from self to service, fear loses its power. You're no longer asking, am I good enough? Instead, you're asking, how can I make a difference? That shift transforms insecurity into impact. Because when what you do matters beyond you, you'll always find the strength to show up. The truth is, self-centered confidence is fragile. When confidence depends on appearance, achievement, or recognition, it rises and falls with circumstance. One failure, one criticism, one lost opportunity can shake it. But when confidence is anchored in contribution, it becomes steady. You can face rejection, failure, or change and still stand firm because your worth isn't tied to how things go. It's tied to why you're doing them. Serving a purpose bigger than yourself gives your confidence context. It takes the spotlight off ego and places it on impact. The athlete who plays for the team, not just the trophy, performs with heart. The leader who focuses on empowering others leads with conviction, not control. The teacher who teaches for transformation, not applause, shows up with authenticity. Purpose amplifies confidence because it reminds you that what you do isn't about proving yourself. It's about improving something. Purpose also quiets the noise of comparison. When you're serving something meaningful, you're not distracted by who's ahead or behind. You're focused on contribution, not competition. That clarity creates peace, and peace is confidence's greatest companion. You stop chasing validation because fulfillment replaces it. You stop seeking perfection because progress becomes enough. Confidence built on purpose isn't loud, it's certain. The beautiful irony is that the more you give, the more confident you become. Contribution strengthens identity. It reminds you that you have value to offer, that your presence makes a difference. When you see how your actions touch others, even in small ways, a kind word, a solution shared, a moment of encouragement, it reinforces the truth that you matter. And that realization is the most powerful form of self-belief there is. Serving a purpose also provides direction when fear shows up. Fear says, what if I fail? Purpose replies, then I'll learn something that helps others. Fear says, what if I'm not enough? Purpose answers, it's not about me, it's about who I can help. That dialogue turns pressure into perspective. Purpose reframes every challenge as an opportunity to serve, not a test of worth. And from that place, confidence can't be shaken. The habit of purpose-driven action doesn't require grand gestures. It begins in the small, consistent choices to make life around you a little better. To listen when someone needs to be heard, to share what you've learned, to build rather than criticize. The more you contribute, the more deeply you understand your own strength. Because confidence isn't built by standing above others. It's built by lifting them. And in serving something greater than yourself, you find something even more profound than confidence. You find meaning. The kind that doesn't fade, doesn't waver, and doesn't need to be proven. The kind that stands quietly in every storm, reminding you that your life, your voice, and your work exist for a reason bigger than you.